have to choose my words really carefully in this video because I'm talking about the one group that ever gives me community guideline strikes on YouTube. This is a group that has seen a lot of legislation that has boosted them sometimes unconstitutionally or illegally into a super citizen that is not subject to the same rules or laws as the rest of us. They get to violate a lot of criminal code. They get to be extremely hostile and abusive. They get to be treated differently in institutions like schools, universities, hospitals, prisons, even. This group I can't name, but I bet you I've already got to the point where you know who I'm talking about because they've become such a, well, problematic group that people are getting really friggin' sick of them. Now, this group is getting more and more agitated because with the advent of newer alt tech sites with more lax terms of service policy and with the fall of diversity, equity, and inclusion money starting to peter out from great big multinational corporations like Vanguard and BlackRock, that all of a sudden they're hearing a little bit more pushback than they're used to. However, I'm here to assure this nameless group that most people only vaguely tolerate you. Most people just don't want to deal with you. Most people are not very interested in engaging you, let alone supporting you. And there is no shortage of people who are strongly, let's use the word, disturbed by your growth in number and with the complete abandon and just apparent impunity that you can terrorize the rest of the public. Now, this group is under medical diagnostician manuals considered not mentally ill. This group is like other groups in an what do you call it? Not an adjective, an acronym that this group responds to. Just like another couple of letters in this group, they managed to petition and bully and harass diagnostician and psychological departments to the point where we just sort of pretend that they're not mentally ill, that they are normal. And once we did that several years ago, now we're to the point where we have to pretend they are something they're physically not. That's right, we have to participate in a psychotic delusion. And even on the rare occasion people admit that this is a mental disorder, they describe it with a specific medical sounding name that, again, I can't name or I'm going to get struck. And they say that it's, treated by body mutilation, which is peculiar because it's pretty much the only medical condition of any kind, mental illness or otherwise, that is treated by cutting off parts of the body, appendages of the body, and cutting wounds into the body that did not used to be there. And now we've gotten to the point where the age of consent, what's that? I mean, we can't fuck children, but we can cut off their body parts and drill holes into them or cut holes into them. And that's normal. And we can pump them full of chemicals that are naturally produced by people who are not them, but pump those into their body, permanently altering their physical development and their psychological development as well, their actual neurological is the word I was looking for, development. And that's also not just okay, it's normal, and saying anything negative about that is wrong. And these people are allowed to now take this mental disorder that they have and develop their own entire personality around it. The way they dress, the way they speak, their body language and physical mannerisms are now completely catered around this mental illness. And then we, as the general public, are forced to, when we come across one of these people, stop whatever we're doing and participate in their fantasy. We have to talk to them the way they want to. We have to call them a name that's not their name. We have to describe them in a way that is not actually the way they are, or even the way they look most of the time, let alone how they're, no matter how hard they're pretending to, in costuming themselves in this fashion, right? We have to participate in this. But I have to use one specific term that could get me in trouble, um, and this is not your typical mental illness. This is not a bipolar disorder or attention deficit disorder. However, this is actually comorbid with particularly bipolar and especially autism spectrum disorder and especially Asperger's. For some reason, a massive correlation between this unnamed um, lifestyle and Asperger's and bipolar disorder strongly correlated. So one that is produced to extreme social dysfunction, Asperger's, and are not produced. What's the word I'm looking for? It goes along with extreme social dysfunction and a lack of ability to socialize properly, engage the emotions and engagement of others when you're speaking to them. And then there's a bipolar disorder, which comes with mood swings, delusions, and paranoia. And these people are now basically getting to live a fantasy life that nobody else is allowed to, and that society has, for some reason, again, because of money that comes from another unnamed group that I tend not to name on this channel, a group of extremely wealthy dudes, have actually largely promoted this behavior. That's why there's been I think, over 9 or 10,000% increase in reported cases of this unnamed disorder. Um, but I'm here to tell you one specific thing about it, is that it's not a typical mental disorder. It is a sexual fetish. That's right. It's never been appropriate for anybody else to walk into a place of business or a school, especially if they're a child, and say, oh, by the way, I need you to engage me in a conversation, whether you consent to it or not, about the fact that I jerked off to, what's a porn star? I don't really watch that much porn, but let's go with Mia Khalifa or Anna Kendrick, right? She's like an actress now. Yeah, I jerked off to that person furiously, like all the time. And that person, or hentai, let's just go with hentai, because, there's some kind of weebs that like to walk around with those shirts with what is it called, a hegao or ahigao or whatever, where chicks are making weird slutty faces. And so say somebody comes in and says that the anime that they jerk off to all the time, and they're wearing basically porn all over them, and you have to address them by a title that has to do with what they jerk off to. And that's actually part of the fetish. See, it's not just the fetish of thinking of yourself as this thing you're not, and it's not just a fetish about being sexually aroused by the thing you're not, pretending to be that. You're also sexually aroused in forcing people to see you that way. And for some people, it's a domination fetish, and for others, it's actually humiliation fetish. And there is some variance there, but make no mistake, at all times, it's a sexual fetish. So we're basically allowing people to walk around in the equivalent of bondage gear or lingerie or disgusting hentai merchandise and treat that as normal. And then these people are allowed to boss everyone around and say, if you do not pretend that what I am doing is normal, and not only that it's normal, but you must defer to me because I have anxiety disorder, and because I'm a protected minority, I get to be treated under different rules. Oftentimes these people are not required to abide by dress codes. They're not penalized for tardiness or absences from work or school. They're not, and then now they want the mutilation surgeries that come with their sexual fetish to be paid for by the taxpayer instead of out of their own pocket as an elective cosmetic or surgery, just something that they do by choice, which a bunch of surgeons are more than happy to mutilate you if it is your choice. But no, because this is a very real condition, but it's not a mental illness, but it's a real health issue, and these people also do something that mentally ill and disturbed and sadistic people do, which is threaten suicide. or threaten self-harm, I should say, because that's another one of those words that can get you in trouble, right? They will say, if you do not pay out of your pocket for me to mutilate myself so I can live my sexual fetish fantasy life among the general population, whether they fucking like it or not, I will harm myself and put myself on the ground in a cemetery. Um, and then honestly, if you actually look at this, we have a medical community that just accepts that the best way to treat this is not with drugs, and there have been drugs that have shown in studies that they actually can suppress this compulsion, because it's a compulsive disorder as well. They can suppress this compulsion to behave in this deviant manner. And these drugs have been heavily suppressed because the mere existence of the fact that there is a pharmaceutical drug that can cure this mental illness. Nope, 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 nope. We are, this fantasy we're living is real. Because again, keep in mind, we don't have to pretend that this is a person, um, or whether we consent to or not. We don't just have to pretend that this is a person, who's normal. It's normal for them to be pretending, but we have to act as if they're a real thing. Like, if take say an otherkin who thinks they're a dragon. If you do not act like they're a dragon, not not only is that not flying anymore, that person will go to a veterinarian's office and say, hey, I have a medical issue and you need to treat me because I am an animal and not a human being. And if you don't treat me, veterinarian who's not, um, licensed to treat human beings, if you don't treat me, I will sue you for discrimination. That's like where we're at equivalently with this unnamed group that I cannot mention because of censorship. Now, 12, 15 minutes is probably all I want to spend on this, but I just want to reiterate that this isn't even a typical delusion or psychotic disorder. This is, again, a sexual perversion. And in fact, all of this acronym that is often accompanying, unnamed acronym that's often accompanying this particular letter in that acronym, these are all, again, the polite way to put it is a sexual preference, but what it is a sexual perversion. And if we even compare this unnamed group I'm talking about to the groups it's associated with, it has far outstripped those other groups in terms of media spotlight, in terms of power to harass and harm other people. This particular letter has expressed an extreme willingness to engage in harassment and stalking and doxing and calling of businesses and pressuring people to basically tortiously interfere with businesses and fuck with people at a very vital and violent level. And of course, these people have not only been known to very frequently issue death threats at a level more extreme than your average Call of Duty lobby on Xbox Live. These people oftentimes make good on it, as we've noticed that this particular demographic of disturbed individuals has started shooting up schools a lot lately, and you're going to be seeing more of that, because part of what's caused this problem is they're like the end stage, they're late stage of this rhetoric that we've been dealing with for 8 years, where words are violence. So the fact that I'm coming here and invalidating them and saying that this is a perverse sexual behavior that belongs in the privacy of these people's homes and should not be forced on the public, and in fact it's obscene that anybody thinks they should do that or should be allowed to do that. And the fact that they not only do target children, but expressly want to and do everything they can to target children, and are often very open about their desire to spread this perversion to children. And school districts, for some reason, are very gung-ho about helping them rape and abuse children. And it's very just odd that we live in a society where this is normalized. And the thing is there's also this illusion that it is normal, but it's not. It requires the force and power of the federal government, of law enforcement. It requires intense amounts of wasted money from extremely wealthy, very deranged and dangerous financial entities who are actively hostile to Western society as a whole and Western culture as a whole, and like to weaponize groups like the one I'm talking about, as well as many, many others, in order to destabilize society. So yes, there's a whole even conspiracy angle to this, but when talking strictly about this end product, this unnamed disorder, these people are just porn addicted perverts, period. And it's not a real lived experience or any kind of poetic description. What it is a fantasy that nobody even cares to disabuse these people of. And it's also a fantasy that, by the way, people like to pretend it's like not hurting them and it's not hurting anybody, and participating in this fantasy enriches their lives. Keep in mind, somewhere between 45 to 50% of these people who participate in this fantasy end up attempting to end themselves. And people who go so far into this fantasy that they participate in the genital mutilation treatment for this medical disorder, that rate of attempted ending of themselves goes up to over 55%. So I don't know what other demographic other than extreme, barely functional schizophrenics have a attempted killing yourself rate anywhere close to this. So I have to ask you, if the professional, and I'm not a medical professional, and this is not in any way medical advice, this is a philosophical discussion we're having, just in case anybody tries to pull some crazy lawsuit shit because I'm using, medical terms. I'm not a doctor. Okay, so you can just fling that in my face whenever you want. It's right there out in the open. But if the professional medical community thinks the best way to handle this disorder is to follow a course of treatment that involves body mutilation and ends in death, perhaps that needs to be looked at from another angle. Thanks for watching.